In another part of his letter from a Birmingham jail, Dr. King wrote this: "One may want to ask, how can you advocate breaking some laws and obeying others? The answer lies in the fact that there are two types of laws, just and unjust. I would be the first to advocate obeying just laws. One has not only a legal but a moral responsibility to obey just laws. Conversely, one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. I would agree with St. Augustine that an unjust law is no law at all." Now, what is the difference between the two? How does one determine whether a law is just or unjust? A just law is a man-made code that squares with the moral law or the law of God. An unjust law is a code that is out of harmony with the moral law. To put it in the terms of St. Thomas Aquinas, an unjust law is a human law that is not rooted in eternal law and natural law. Any law that uplifts human personality is just. Any law that degrades human personality is unjust. All segregation statutes are unjust because segregation distorts the soul and damages the personality. It gives the segregator a false sense of superiority and the segregated a false sense of inferiority.
At the time of Rosa Parks' arrest, the local chapter of the NAACP, under the leadership of its president, E.D. Nixon, had been planning to take action against segregation. Nixon decided to make her arrest a test case with the aim of encouraging Montgomery's black citizens to challenge segregation on the city's buses. Rosa Parks was a good candidate due to her employment record and marital status, as well as her good standing in the community. Between her arrest and trial, Nixon organized a meeting of local ministers at Dr. King's church, the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery. Out of that meeting came a body named the Montgomery Improvement Association, or MIA, that would initiate a citywide boycott of Montgomery buses. Dr. King was chosen to lead the boycott. He was Nixon's choice because he was relatively new to Montgomery, and the city's fathers had not had the opportunity to intimidate him. Despite an initial reluctance to be thrust into the limelight, Dr. King rose to the challenge and led the action that would become a landmark event in the civil rights struggle.
Martin Luther King went to Montgomery because he didn't want to be involved in Atlanta's politics. He wanted to finish his doctoral dissertation and learn to be a good pastor. And it was Rosa Parks sitting in the bus that he knew nothing about that led him to a meeting to decide how they were going to respond to this. While the meeting was going on, as the youngest pastor in town, I don't think he was even in much of the meeting. He was in the back room running the mimeograph machine, announcing the bus boycott, and they elected him president.
The boycott proved extremely effective. The city transit system lost enough passengers to cause serious economic distress. Instead of riding buses, boycotters organized a system of carpools, with car owners volunteering their vehicles or themselves to drive people to various destinations. In addition to using private motor vehicles, the people used other methods to get around, such as cycling, walking, and hitchhiking. Some even rode mules or drove horse-drawn buggies. Across the South, black churches raised money to support the boycott. They even collected new and slightly used shoes to replace the tattered footwear of Montgomery's black citizens, many of whom walked everywhere rather than ride the bus and submit to Jim Crow laws. Some of the white population responded to the boycott with violence. The houses belonging to Dr. King and Ralph Abernathy were firebombed, as were 4 black Baptist churches.
After the attack at Dr. King's house, he gave a speech to 300 angry black people who had gathered outside. This is what he said to them. If you have weapons, take them home. If you do not have them, please do not seek to get them. We cannot solve this problem through retaliatory violence. We must meet violence with nonviolence. We must meet hate with love. Remember, if I am stopped, this movement will not stop because God is with the movement. Go home with this glowing faith and this radiant assurance.
Dr. King and 89 other boycott leaders and carpool drivers were indicted under a 1921 ordinance for conspiring to interfere with a business. Rather than wait to be arrested, they turned themselves in as an act of defiance. Dr. King spent 2 weeks in jail, but it was a move that backfired by bringing national attention to the protest. Commenting on his arrest, Dr. King said that he was proud of his crime. It was the crime of joining his people in a nonviolent protest against injustice. The young reverend was just 26 years old when he led the Montgomery bus boycott in response to the arrest of Rosa Parks. After 13 months of preaching patience and determination, his peaceful leadership of the boycott paid off. The Supreme Court ruled segregated seating was unconstitutional, and Montgomery had to concede. The boycott marked the beginning of Dr. King's policy of nonviolent protest and civil disobedience.